You gonna like say hello or something?
What's the good word, Coach Robbie?
Oh man,
Hey, thanks for letting me take a shower, by the way.
it's all good, man. I understand. You got things to do.
Well, I had a run and I got out of the shower with shampoo still in my hair. You ever done that?
No,
Forgot to clean it off.
no, I have not. But as they say, like as you get older, you start to forget some of the little things.
Oh, yeah.
So your oven's not still on, is it? Or the car's not still like in neutral in the driveway or anything? Like your everything's locked down and safe and done, right?
I washed my car yesterday and I had it in the backyard, and I went out last night to go somewhere, and it's usually in the front, and I was like, what the hell did I do to my car? That first, like, somebody stole my car.
Exactly. I've done that before too, and I guess I usually drive our Escape, and then if I for some reason like take our Volvo wagon, and I like walk out of the grocery store, and I'm like, what the? Somebody jacked. Oh yeah, I'm looking for a totally different car.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, yeah, what an idiot.
Yeah,
So,
I do that with my bike because I hide my bike somewhere in the house when I go on vacation. When I come back, it's not in the front room. I'm like, what the? Somebody got...
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I thought I would make a quick note at the top because if there's a different music open to this podcast, it's the one of my favorite bands from back in the day that I feel like is the greatest rock band to never blow up, and it's a band out of Rockford called the Pimps. So look them up, and I feel like it has a good vibe for our podcast. I don't know if I'm going to try it or not, but I thought I'd maybe mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess.
We're kind of getting close to Louisville. It's a little more energy. It's a little more, kind of like, all right, let's get in the bucket and go.
Oh yeah, get it in the bucket. I like that.
Yeah. Anyway, do you mind if I tell you what I thought about when I was on my run?
Go for it, man. That's what this podcast is all about.
Yeah. Well, it occurred to me, and it's been kind of like slowly coming into my head over the last, I don't know, month or two, that I'm finally starting to get a handle on how training for Ironman and these long, crazy distances and everything can really, like, honestly make you feel better and make you stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Because instead of like projecting like it, a persona or something that, yeah, I'm doing these things, but in the background you're kind of just wiped out and crushed, and
Yeah.
it sort of really is one of those things. Like one of the first things, and you may have told me this at the beginning of my venture back in the day, is that there's really a couple ways you can get hurt, and that's by going too far or going too fast. And if you want to translate that into it's almost a good way to get hurt mentally too, or emotionally, or psychologically too. You know what I mean? Like if you keep pushing yourself beyond your means or your abilities, that could really take a toll. And I think a lot of us have a tendency to. And I'm speaking about me. I should say I have a tendency to, throughout the years, kind of project that I'm going out and crushing these ones in the back, but the reality is I'm curled in a corner when I get done. It's like it's not really like helping me grow per se, or helping me evolve. And I just feel like, I don't know, over the last couple of months I'm starting to get a handle on that and taking what I can really do instead of trying to be somebody I'm not.
Interesting.
Anyway.
That's a lot of deep thought for a Sunday morning.
Well, that's what happens on a run, I guess. By the way, I replicated your run. Not as fast, but the same.
I figured that's why you were asking.
Yeah, I was just kind of looking for a little bit of a little idea. So I liked it.
Well, I
It was
mean,
good.
yeah. I felt good this morning. I mean, I tend to do that in a lot of my longer. You know this. I'm while I don't do it every time, the majority of my long rides or long runs have structure in them. In that, I try to do work on higher efforts at the same time. So I'm working on getting faster at the same time I'm working on going for longer. And it's because for me it's about we talk about sort of accumulated fatigue, but in a workout it's about accumulated stress. That's different. But yeah, it's Did that this morning. It was great, man. The weather, I mean, it's you know, fall is like what it must feel like to like start doping.
Yeah, that
Once
makes
you,
sense.
yeah, I mean, like like when you come out of like, earlier this week, I mean, I did my run on Wednesday, and I did like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was like I got done with the run, and it had feels like 96.
Yeah.
And dude, I was like struggling and gasping for air. I was like, this is just terrible. Like I don't like I'm gonna probably just go ahead and DNS Louisville. And then this morning I go out and it's my last, it's my definitely my last long run, but which was only an hour, but it was I did 20 minutes easy and then 30 minutes of what I would call tempo effort, which isn't a pace, it's more of a feel, like just whatever the day gives me on my open half marathon feel. Um, so it's actually really nice here though since we moved. It took me like a mile and a quarter to get to the lake, and got to like run over the bridge like by the lake, and it was nice and cool and crisp. And I was like, I'm not gonna look at my watch until the last. I knew it was 30 minutes, my tempo effort, and I knew that based on I don't know, I know where I've been the last few weeks, so I kind of figured I would be somewhere around 30 minutes would get me around 4 miles, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, and that's about a 7:30 mile.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I was like, I'm not going to look at my watch till I get to the third mile split because that means I'll be closing in. And looked down at my third mile split and it was like 7:05, and I was like, man, I'm feeling good today. But it's just amazing what cooler temps and I had a day off yesterday. It's so many. The body has such a like wide range of like daily feels and like abilities that like you can't like we talk about this all the time, like you can't decide to quit or go pro after one single day. And so while I've had but I do have to say when we talk about like what we were talking about on our runs is on my run I could just tell, it's like, what, the training has worked. Now it's time for me to work with it, and that's what race day is about. It's working with the training that's gotten you there, and that comes down to X. So it was more of like, your training is obviously worked. You're in a really good spot. I feel like I've executed pretty well with my training, and what I've asked of myself and how I've responded and how I've adapted. And then so now, it's definitely no excuses, but it's that like, all right, the training's definitely worked, so now I got to work for it, and that comes down to everything from the neck up, when it comes to executing and thinking and the mentality and then emotional aspect of racing.
Yeah, it is interesting how the weather and the training. So like when you say that, um, work with your training, like from here until a race, right?
Hmm.
Is that kind of what you're talking about? Like so that's sort of how I feel. It's like it wasn't like I went on like same deal. I didn't go out and try and blast that tempo run. I was really trying to more find sort of like what I would consider a fast pace
Hmm.
for me. And it was about the same, about half marathon pace, but almost settle into a groove where I felt like it was comfortable more than pushing it. Because I'm not a big fan of like going over the top right now. But just is that kind of what you're talking about as far as working with what you got rather than? I mean, it was. I don't want to say I wasn't pushing it because it was definitely some good effort. But when I got done, what the interesting part is, what I always find interesting is when you come out of like that 30-minute sort of half marathon pace type of
Hmm.
deal, how when you're cooling down,
It's so much faster.
yes,
Yep. To mine
and
was
easy.
too. Mine like, yeah, my easy, like my easy warm up, um, like zone two cruise was a little hillier, but it was like 8:47, 9:07. And then I did like my mile splits. Even my first mile of my tempo effort was like 7:30. And then it went 7:17, 7:15, 6:54, and then back up to the low sevens to get me to 7:15. But then I went and did my cool down. I think it was a hillier route again, and it was 8:11. but I just felt like that. I just felt controlled and smooth. But yeah, I think that happens. I think to most people, and it's about leg turnover, and you've like your body. It's like all systems go. Like your body is fully awake. All systems, and it gets you into a rhythm. And for me, it's like that. I try to picture, and what I mean by like, you know, I'm not going to get any fitter, for the most part between now and race day. And so what I mean, working with what I've got, it's, for today it was, for my effort, it was like, like I like to know what it feels like and familiarize myself with that. Um, it's not it's not totally uncomfortable, but it's a manageable discomfort, which is the total marathon and Ironman. It's a manageable discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like, and that's why I also like to do like some of these harder efforts on long runs, because it's going to be really uncomfortable, and you just have to feel and like remind yourself what it's going to feel like to get that, like I said, like that manageable discomfort. And then between now and race day, it's like I don't need to try and go out and gain minutes and miles per hours and stuff. I need to freshen up and just really just hit my workouts exactly how they're laid out, because it's more about just maintaining what I've gotten and getting to the line fresh rather than becoming stale, or yeah, but I can just get this one last workout in, and really blast it, and that's going to give me the boost I need. Because the more and more I look back on, the way things have gone for me this year versus the way that things went for me last year, I think I definitely went into Wisconsin a little overtrained and not fully rested, with my legs, and so I've taken a different approach uh, this year, and I feel like at this point it's going to pay dividends, and I guess we'll find out. But yeah, and it's also it's being realistic with what your training has gotten you, and realize that you've got what you've got, and what you have right now is what you're going to have on race day. And so now is the time to like dial in the feel and how and the execution, and not just because right now is what, yeah, rest is always better if you need to take it, but right now is when a lot of people just start to really just totally skip workouts. I'm just going to take the day off today. And it's not necessarily that your body needs it. It's just you're already like in that, you know what, I'm racing, so, what's another day off going to hurt? And while it may not hurt, it's not going to help as much as you think it is. Because it's about, like I said, it's about staying sharp. And you want to stay sharp, and you want to feel good, and you want to feel like you're still executing, and go into the race, like we talk about all the time, go into the race really, really engaged. And have your body engaged, and sharpen up that sword.
For me, on that same kind of tip, it's like not only keep your body sharp, but your mind, like remembering how that stuff feels, because it's kind of it's a confidence thing for me too. Like when you can keep getting out there, and what you can do when you do that with your body, and you feel alive, and but some of those, like this tempo run today, when you can feel that. And I like what you said, that manageable discomfort, because it's something like, I always say, okay, this right here is something I can deal with. And it's kind of like the ride on the trace the other day. I ended up going like 71 miles, and so that leaves about 40 miles left. And while I felt pretty decent, and I knew that was sort of like, okay, could I do this again? Because that loop was about 40 miles or whatever. Mm-hmm. So could I do this again? And I was like, yeah, I could. And I knew I was in a good spot. I mean, it was a very hard ride. And yeah, the thought of being able to do that again is pretty, for me, a good sign, a good confidence builder, and then getting off the bike and doing some running, and kind of like, all right, cruising along, the legs feel pretty good. So mm-hmm. When you talk about that manageable discomfort, that's everything to me. It's like, how do you keep going, find a place of comfort in this pain or whatever, and just stick it out. Because I like to experience that. I like for me, training is experiencing that. And the better shape you get in, the less you're going to have to deal with it, you know? But you're always going to have to
Hmm.
deal with it.
Yeah, always, no matter what you're doing. I think that's why, it's really important to put yourself in areas that are very, um, like we always, like I guess a small example is always taking the hillier route.
Yeah.
It's just, and you just know. Or okay, perfect example is what we both chose to do the last 15 minutes of our ride on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. Which was?
It's the well, if for those of us that have been to camp or been with us on the trace, you know that going up on the trace, there's this 2 mile incline that's about 300. It's maybe it's not 2 miles. It's the incline part's probably about a mile and a half, but it's a pretty substantial hill, and it takes a good clip to get up. And you and I both had already done 4+ hours, and we came back to the car. And on the way back, you have to pass the car, um, and you have to make that choice. You know what? I could just peel in the parking lot, um, and get in my car and call it a day, or I can take the 2 mile descent and know that I've got to climb back up this monstrous hill on super tired legs. It's going to kill my mile per hour average, all that kind of stuff that a lot of people look at. But it's good for you, and it's hard, and it's choosing to go past your car. And although a lot of times I get halfway down the descent, I'm like, yeah, this is a bad idea. But I'm like, there's no turning back now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've got there. I'm there. But as soon as I start the climb back up, I'm so happy that I did it. Um, because it's choosing those because I knew for me, especially on Friday, it was going to be really, really uncomfortable. But I chose to do it anyway. And I think it's those small little things you do in training that, whether it's really hot outside or really cold outside, really hilly or whatever it is, it's those small little choices you choose to make during training that add up to this. Yeah, I think it is confidence that add up to this confidence on race day that you I don't want to say that you welcome the discomfort, but it's going to happen, you're prepared for it, and you're mentally strong enough when it occurs, because you put yourself in all those scenarios before. It's just about the work, and it's about, we talk about all the time, it's like about just being, you know, I don't I don't necessarily like the phrase like being comfortable being uncomfortable. There's no such thing as being comfortable when you're uncomfortable. It's and what we talked about before, it's like, and it's a Buddhist thing. It's like when you get discomfort and you feel pain or you feel, anxiety or whatever, you choose to go into it, and you
Yeah.
choose to accept it, and you choose to acknowledge it. You don't ignore it. You're not in like, discomfort denial. Um, you just choose to go into it. And once you've accepted it, that that's how things are going to be, then you continue on with your day. It's not comfortable. I think it's more empowering than it is comfort. But yeah, it's those little things that you do over the course of a whole season. And honestly, it happens. There's a lot of time where it can happen during the off season, or quote unquote off season, like in the winter months. It's all those like decisions that where it's working out when it's super cold and dark in the morning at 6 o'clock, and you're alone on your trainer, and your race isn't until like 6 months.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing. Whether it's 4 weeks out from your race or 40 days or 4 months, it's doing those things that, yeah, there are plenty of other people out there doing the same thing, but your battle is always with you. And so if you can say to yourself, yeah, man, the old me would have just bagged it. And if you can find yourself saying, I did it today and I did better and the old me wouldn't have done this, then that's when you're starting to, you know, you might not be at the point where you're gonna become friends with discomfort, but you're going to not look at it as an enemy either. Just kind of is what it is.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. the other day. Well, for one thing, one of the main reasons I have such a hard time with cycling is my pain. It's my saddle. It's I've never. It doesn't matter what. I mean, for whatever reason, I struggle with pain in the saddle area. I mean, I don't know. It's just for me. I haven't figured it out, um, but when I've lately I've been doing something exactly what you're talking about. That Buddhist thing is like what I do when that happens. And I was doing it the other day, and it gets you through. And it was, I was breathing directly into that area. As I was really focusing on going into that pain, and it really helps when you can kind of focus, and it's almost like when you have pain, you want to turn away from it or try and ignore it or whatever. But if you go into it and pay it attention, it's almost like it wakes it up and it brings it back into the full body experience, and
Hmm.
that's sort of exactly what I was feeling the other day. And that's sort of like one of the things that I do just to I've really been working on this breath stuff lately too, and I've always kind of done that when I've been running and I feel pain in my knee or whatever. I always go into it and breathe it around and stuff like that, and kind of been working more on the cycling. And like I think you were talking about, maybe you weren't talking on here, but when we kind of got into that deal this summer where we were focused on climbing and aero a lot,
Hmm. Yep.
and you said that your goal for the day was to keep your shoulders relaxed, or one of your goals.
Yeah.
And that's the same kind of thing, because I take that back. That isn't the only. It's in my neck and my shoulders and stuff like that. And I feel like, well, yeah, some of that stuff can be, maybe corrected with a fit or whatever, but it's not always there. So I'm more inclined to believe that it's because I'm tense in those areas and because
Hmm.
I'm just not relaxed. So I think that's a great thought, because I mean, you think about cycling and everybody's like, it's your legs, but the pain a lot of times comes from the saddle and your neck and your shoulders and the upper body and things like that. The real pain, to me anyway, or the distracting pain, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of people, I mean, that's what you see we're going to see it firsthand in Louisville and really other Ironman. You see more, I bet you see 6 to 7 out of 10 triathletes the last 20 to 30 miles sitting up the whole way
Yeah.
because they're either spent or they're just so uncomfortable the entire time that they're like, I just can't do this any longer. And they may have the legs, but once you sit up, you're like, now I'm fighting the wind. Now I'm just now, like it's not defeating, I wouldn't think, but it's definitely, um, it definitely zaps your energy, I think, to feel like, man, I've kind of got the legs, but here I am having to sit up again. Here I am pedaling in the wind, sitting up, can't even get my air bars because I'm uncomfortable, and it's either accepting that it's going to be that way, or it's practicing and practicing and practicing being okay doing that. And that's, you have to have all these little small goals and details to pay attention to on that journey and on that route to race day. And a lot of times it's adding things to your plate, and a lot of times it's eliminating things. But again, all those things are things come up, things disappear, but they should all be planned for. And before you map out a plan or accept what a plan's going to ask of you, you should be willing to, um, acknowledge what the demand is going to be. And I think that's, while we're in like the end of our, quote unquote season with this, a lot of athletes find themselves in this, what I call like a discovery phase. Like, I wonder if I can do this, race for next year. And a lot of it's always about ability. For at least the questions that I get, it's always, more oftentimes than not, it's about ability.
Like
Do you
what?
think, okay, so, I've got athletes that are like, do you think I can do a 70.3? Do you think I can do a full Ironman? Um, well, of course you can. Like, literally anybody can. Yeah, Joe Schmo off the street could walk up to me and say, "I've never swam a lick, or I'm in a pretty out of shape. I've got it 1 year. Can I do an Ironman? Can you finish one? I think the chances are a lot higher than you probably think, if you stick to the plan. But I guess what I'm getting at is I had an experience. Uh, so not this last Friday, but okay, so the Saturday before, when I was doing my ride, and I think this goes to how you deal with this discomfort too, is that in order to deal with discomfort positively and in the best way possible, you've got to be able to have other things in your life a lot more quiet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, keep going.
So for me, so for example, like I went out to,
Somebody's got some discomfort in their life back there.
yeah, he's I think he's getting cleaned up right now. He just was outside playing for a
Tell
little
him to
bit.
breathe. Oh, he is breathing. See, that's the thing.
He's definitely breathing. Um,
He's breathing to the area.
which yeah, he's definitely doing that. He's sucking all the air in and out. Yeah, hold on a second. We can edit this part out real quick. Hold on a second. Yeah, he was covered in mac and cheese. He had to be washed off. Yeah, yeah, no, I remember where I was. So basically, what I'm trying to get at is that when, for me, I train the best in a given workout if I'm totally focused and I don't feel any anxiety or, I don't know, not anxiety, but any guilt that what I'm doing now is taking away from something else that I should be doing.
Yeah.
So, so for example, and I think a lot of athletes struggle with this. And I had a conversation with another athlete who was like, I've got this really demanding job and I've had to like cut out for workouts, and then the whole time I'm working out, I'm worried that my boss is going to call, and then so like you're working out but you're not present, and so for me, like so like last Saturday, um, went out for my long ride, and my lower back had been, it kind of actually really bothered me for a few days, and moving a bunch of stuff up and down our stairs and some of the heavier stuff I did by myself. And I got to like the 3 hour mark on my ride, and I was like, I'm just gonna cut it in and take it home. But the the biggest distracting factor for me was that as soon as I left the house that morning, I felt guilty for going,
Mm,
because Allie and Hayden were both sick, and even though she was like, "Yeah, I should, you go ahead and do this. I know it's important." I felt like, you know what, I felt guilty. I felt like I should just, not go in the first place. And so with like the first inkling of discomfort, I used that, like, you know what, it's just go home. It's better off that you go home. Like, and you make that decision uh, to avoid whatever discomfort you have for, okay, well, I'm making the best decision by going home, versus I made the conscious decision to work out and start our ride together on Friday, knowing that I needed at least another full day of recovery, that my ride was going to be incredibly, um, really, really painful in terms of the last 2 hours and my legs weren't fresh. But it was during the work day. Hayden was at daycare. I had nowhere else to be, and all I could do was just focus on me. And I welcomed it. And if I had done that on Saturday, I probably would have done the same thing. And and so, but it was more painful easily our ride on Friday for me. But it was not having anything else on my plate or in my mind taking my energy away, like, oh, I should be home. It was that I had the confidence knowing, you know what, I'm gonna knock it out today, and that way Saturday I can just be at home with my family and not feel any guilt over leaving it. And I think that when it comes to planning for your year, I think that's one of the things you have to ask yourself first. What's going to be my biggest obstacle to my best performance? Is it time? Is it money? Is it ability? Is it family responsibilities? And then it's remembering these times in your head, like you like for me, it's going through it this year. It's like when I look next year, it's like, man, but do I even want to do a full next year? Because if I do, am I going to have these feelings again? Like I go out for rides and I feel guilty. Like, it's, you and I live a very different training lifestyle in terms of family obligations and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people that listen have these families like, yeah, but I don't want to interfere with my family. And I think that's where you come to this like this happy balance of acceptance. Like I can either accept that I'm gonna feel guilty and it's gonna be okay, and I can see what I can do to maximize my best performance, or I can accept that I'm gonna probably cut some workouts short, and I'm probably gonna skip some workouts because I don't want to feel guilty and I want to be with my family, and that's okay. And I think there are so many ways to approach a race that it's all dependent on how you can show up for race day feeling guilt free. And so, whatever that looks like, I think those are the questions you have to ask yourself when you ask yourself if I can do a 70.3, 140.6. I don't think that's necessarily the right question. I think the question is, am I willing to sacrifice this, or am I not willing to sacrifice this, or am I okay emotionally and mentally handling this throughout the year? Um, given the time restraints and demands that's going to be asked of me.
Yeah, but let me ask you this, though, man. Um, you know, guilt.
I hope that makes sense. It makes sense to me, but I hope that makes
it does make
any kind
sense,
of
but
sense.
I want to ask you a question because, like you're right, we'd have totally different lifestyles, but that doesn't, make me immune from guilt. You know what I mean? So, like, what happens if you decide, okay, you said you felt you had that, smoldering of guilt underneath that workout. What
Mm-hmm.
happens if you decide to skip that workout? I mean, there's guilt on the other side of that. So in a weird way, it's kind of coming back to what I was talking about earlier because do you think that, if you've got a good handle wrapping around all of your training and why you're doing it and where you're at and it's actually making you feel better, i.e. making you a better person in the end to be a better father and a better husband and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
And
so because there's
that's
guilt in missing
yeah.
workouts too is what I'm getting at. And you know, and I think that comes back to just living in the moment because, I mean, there's going to be unpredictable events and things like that. Like you said, they were both sick, and I totally I don't understand what it's like to be a father, a husband, but I totally empathize with that. The question always to me is like, you know, how much should we harbor, responsibility for someone else? I mean that I'm not saying, you know what I mean? I'm like, where do you kind of like balance that out?
No,
It's someone
I
else's life. You can't,
totally
you know what I mean? How much can you
yeah,
do?
no, I totally no, I totally get that. It's it's that fine line where you know what you're going to get out of it, what you also know what you're missing, and it's not so much it's not so much a sacrifice, as it is just a different way of getting to where you want to go.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, but for um, yeah, I mean, and I think and that's ultimately, and that's probably a lot of just my personality in general. Is and I think that's one of the bigger things that they talk about when they talk about people in recovery, is that one of the two things that kill alcoholics and people who are addicted to drugs like that is resentment and shame.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't, and for even no matter what, if everybody else has forgiven you and they've all told you that they forgive you, if you don't forgive yourself, none of it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of that could be is applicable to training, I think, where if you've gotten the permission and your wife or your husband or your significant other, your kids look at your eye and say, I want you to go train, this is exciting, you got to go do it, then you go do it. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to have that conversation where you're like, they told me it was okay, I can just go and not think and not feel guilty. um and so I think that for me, that's probably definitely part of it, is that um once you get the gift of acceptance and allowing someone to let you do this, then you should take it and not hold yourself back with those kind of thoughts and feelings. But I think a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, I get a lot of inquiries of athletes that have super busy lives and like single moms with kids and work two jobs, and it's just like, and then they feel guilty about doing this. I'm like, listen, your first primary objective is to remove all guilt, and then or as best you can,
Yeah.
and 'cause it'll never be all, I don't think, all the way gone, but it's because because what happens is the more guilt you carry into the to a race, the more pressure and the less fulfillment you're going to get, because all you're looking for is really, in my opinion, to fail or justify all the unjust sacrifices in your mind that you've made the whole year. But if you can go into a race feeling, I did this right, I managed it right, I took advantage of time when I could, I skipped workouts when I thought it was the best thing for me and my family. If you can make it to the starting line with that mentality, oh, then I think that you win no matter what. And I think that's where you have to have a shift in a mindset depending on what kind of life you're coming from.
Yeah, we talk about your why a lot, and that to me is what's coming into play here as well. It's like, um, if if we talk about this concept of recovery and healing and things like that, I think that, as we've mentioned many times, we think a lot of people get into triathlon for that reason. There's something going on, and they want to, kind of use it as a vehicle to become a more whole and better person. It's easy to let that, spin things out of control the wrong way. So as I think about how training actually is starting to make me feel stronger and clearer and more comfortable in my skin, yeah, then you start to get to a point where, like, that then you're kind of like, in a way, vindicated, be like, yeah, all right, now it's making sense, and all this commitment and time and effort I'm putting into becoming a more well-rounded human being, even through the absurdity of the time you put and energy you put into Ironman. But it's a process, it's a road. I was thinking,
Mm-hmm.
when I was coming up the hill at the end of the run today, after the 30-minute rather hard running, and then I kind of backed it down. But I was coming up the hill to end it back to my house, and it's so weird. Every once in a while, I get these feelings like, on a training run, like I'm getting to the end of the Ironman, and it just gives me chills, and it's sort of like I did it. It's like I've been at the last two, these two races, and the look of relief and satisfaction that you see on faces is unbelievable. And every once in a while that kind of comes up on a training run for me. I just feel like my house is, I just kind of imagine it being the finish line. What a great, accomplishment that is, really, just to finish that race, and how towards the last 24th mile or something like that, the feeling you start getting
Mm-hmm.
about, like, wow, man. I mean, that's the feeling that you can't explain to people, I think, that don't understand. I mean, to me, that's about where it all starts coming into, making sense. It's like,
It's hard to, man. It's hard. It's. We talked about this, I guess, in the second to last, or one of the last two podcasts. I mean, it's like you can't, like, when they have that phrase, like, well, it's like walk a mile in that man's shoes. It's like, dude, a 140.6 in that person's shoes, like, it's not the physical things. It's like everything that you feel in that finish line. Like, I don't even think people feel their legs. I
no.
think it's like I don't want to say it's like an out of body experience, but it kind of is. Like, you don't literally feel any physical pain. And for, like, this, however long that red carpet is, like, let's call it, 50 meters. For that 50 meters, I would argue that nobody, like, I can't even remember, um, like, feeling any pain. Like, everything, like, it immediately goes, like, my thoughts and my feelings or emotions or, gratitude, and it's like I literally feel no pain. And I think it's like that for a lot of people. I think that's why it's hard to describe.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a 140.6 miles of, like, sort of an endorphin release, like, that is bliss or something. It's yeah, it's that. I mean, I don't want to. It is. I mean, it's an endorphin flood, most likely. I mean, that just, like, gives you this pleasure, um, syndrome that it's like, I don't know, but it's like natural, right? So
Or is it like that whole lesson of that we talked about before? Is like racing, that whole racing with gratitude thing. Does that have like a pain alleviating, um, aspect to your body?
mm, It could definitely.
I think it could,
I,
or because yeah, who knows? I don't. If anybody has the answer to that, I'd love to hear it. But
well, there's nothing
you
that's
know,
going to put you in the moment like an Ironman marathon. You know what I mean?
no, it's so true.
For
Yeah,
26 miles, it's
yeah.
like you're just in the moment. Well, I mean on the bike, but I think that has a lot to do with it too, because it really like calms that, like that goes into that gratitude space. It forces you just to be right who you are and what you are, and then all that other stuff is just gone, and that's
And
the goal.
isn't that just the more reason to not wear a watch?
Really, it is.
I'm serious because I've been debating on it.
I mean,
Is like because no matter what, because you've gone through so much of that day already, you just got what you got. And literally the watch, if you can tell me you're at like mile 13 of an Ironman marathon, you look down your watch and you see you're not making pace, and you all of a sudden have the energy to make it, I want to hear from you.
hmm
because because I seriously doubt it. But you're totally right, man. It's a great point. It's just like this is you in like your rawest form. No, nothing is really going to make, unless you get like a huge adrenaline dump or but I've heard athletes say this is like as they start to think of everybody but themselves, or they're both intrinsically and externally motivated through other people or circumstances, that they can sometimes use that to carry them the last 6 miles, but it's usually to carry them from not falling even more off than they were, and not like picking up the pace. But yeah, it's like you in your rawest form, you just got what you got, and your watch is just going to basically give you a digital representation of what that of a conversion to a running pace. Um,
yeah,
but I agree. It's you can't force it. The only time you're going to force it, it's like I thought to me like, you know what? The only justification I can make to wearing it on the run is to run with it for the first like 6 miles to make sure that I'm going slow enough.
that's exactly what I was going to
Um,
say. I mean,
but
that
if I have it on after that, I can just see myself like not wanting to let it go, like not wanting to let go of it at like mile 6 if I want to hand it off or just turn it off. Um, and like maybe that's the answer, is just powering off when I get to mile 6, um, and just going. Maybe that's the answer for me, because I do want to have it on for the swims. I do want to see what my swim time is,
mhm.
but I don't need it on the bike because I've got a bike computer. But yeah, maybe that's the answer, is just power off at mile 6 and see what I got going on. But yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I think it's something to think about, man. That's exactly what I was going to say too. Is it? I've got this thing in my head about you know making me start slow, and for me that's going to be you know just a little bit under 10 minutes for the first couple miles, and then just that first 6 miles I don't want to like see any eights. That's just you know where I want to be, and then after that it's just kind of like, okay, breathe,
Yeah.
feel it,
Mm-hmm.
be in the moment, and just
Breathe
do
and
what you
feel
can
it.
do.
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
I definitely don't want to see any sevens
because
because
you know
I.
what we said today, like how that, wow, that was surprising that when I was cooling down I was going faster.
Mm-hmm.
The odds of that happening are pretty slim. You know what I mean?
it's it's
Because you're
so
gonna be
true.
like, look down, and today I was seeing that cool down 8:30 pace, and I was like, wow, this feels great. I was like loving it, and then, but if
Yep.
I look down and see that cool, like that tough 9:30 pace, I'm gonna be like
Mm-hmm.
mentally jacked.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh man, that's gonna make it
Totally.
miserable.
It will.
Hmm.
Yeah, man, it's tough. Decisions, decisions, decisions.
Hey, thanks to everybody that's been out there supporting us on Patreon. I mean, this is basically the main way that we kind of support the costs behind this podcast and keep it going. So patreon.com/crushing iron is how you can leave us a few bucks a month or whatever you want to do. You can get into we keep the closed Facebook group is growing perfectly. Um, a few people here and there just coming in, and this is really where we mention it. So, Crushing Iron Group search that on Facebook, and we'll let you into the closed group where there's a lot of good conversation and um, talking to us directly and what have you. Anything else?
That's it, man.
Oh,
That's it, man.
what about our camps, man? Do we still need any? I mean, what's going on?
April and June camps are now officially sold out.
Wow.
If you want to sign up for our August camp, we'll want more details on that. You can email me at c26coach@gmail.com. And also, if you want to put your name on a wait list in case anybody pulls out of one of the April or June camps and or transfers to the August camp, you can use that same email address to contact me as well. But they can't. I mean, they're full. And I think I posted this in the closed group. We got over 45 now people signed up to come to one of our camps next year already for 2018. So it's a great time of year to start planning for next year, and asking for time off and vacations and all that kind of stuff. So if you want any information, like I said, email me at c26coach@gmail.com. Happy to give it to you.
I mean, and we have a couple swim camps too that I'm actually pumped about. I think they're going to be cool, and they will guarantee to turn you into a much better swimmer, open water swimmer.
I don't guarantee much, but I do guarantee that.
I
think anybody that's been to any of our camps would definitely second that notion that I can't guarantee you will become a faster, more confident, and more comfortable open water swimmer.
Sounds good. Crushing Iron on Twitter. C26_triathlon on Instagram. Get out there. YouTube, Crushing Iron. We got a lot of videos coming up and a lot more coming.
Race week.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a race strategy podcast to go over our individual race strategy and execution plans. Are we going to put that on audio for thousands to listen to, or are we just going to keep that to ourselves?
I don't know. Let's think about that.
It sounds good to me.
Yeah, I mean, we could do that.
I mean, chances are if it's on our agenda to talk about in the podcast, then we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll end up talking about something else. So we'll see what we can do.
We may or may not do that.
Yeah, may or may not. We may or may not. Yeah, but again, thanks for everybody who has been listening to this for almost a year now, and even those of you who have just started listening and caught up. It's been a really, really awesome journey so far for I know you and myself included, and we are coming up on our 100th episode, which is bonkers to me. But pumped to do it, pumped to keep going, and looking forward to seeing and meeting so many new faces in Louisville too, not just athletes that we coach and work with, but people in Louisville that we've come into contact with, and other athletes are coming in to volunteer and cheer and support. And so I know that Mike has gotten basic Ironman VIP celebrity status at pretty much every event that he goes to. But I promise I don't bite either. So if you see me in Louisville, I'll have I'll be the ugly guy in the beard with the C26 hat on
and the cycling gloves
and cycling gloves on, and maybe even some and one booty.
Don't think I didn't notice that the other day, bro.
I was just asking. I was wondering why you didn't mention it.
I was like,
I can't believe you waited.
We got about like a mile in. I'm riding behind you. I'm like, that son of a bitch is wearing cycling gloves right now.
Hey,
and I was wearing a plastic bag.
You were the one with the vest, arm warmers, reflector, and plastic bags underneath.
I have plastic bags and arm warmers. And I'm like, my hands are freezing.
Yeah, well, just taking care. Hey, I don't want to get sick before the race, man. Just trying to stay warm.
Yeah, I hear you.
I was trying to stay warm, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you got warm pretty quick out there.
I did. I warmed up nice and quick.
Well, thanks everyone for listening to the Crushing Iron podcast, the podcast about nothing. or the podcast that makes age group. No, wait. Crushing Iron, the podcast that makes age groupers famous. No, that's just
makes age group.
That's just our videos mainly.
Yeah, that's true. It's our videos. But yeah, if you're in Louisville, come up, see me, say hi. Promise.
Maybe that's what our 100th podcast should be about. We just talk about everybody in the close group.
I can do that.
Talk about all the people in there that we know.
Yeah, I can do that too.
It could be raw and real.
All right, time to sign off.
Okay, have a great day.
See you, man.
See ya.